Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League, everybody. Aggro and Mifflin still with you as we head into set number 2. One of the only downsides about coming in back to the studio and being on this beautiful set is that we don't have maxonomic chairs here for the desk.
God, I know. My back knows it, too.
Yeah, we really know it. Trust me. I'm getting uncomfortable sitting in this chair already. Maybe I'll have Mifflin build me one because allegedly he would build it more easily without me there, is what I was just told during that ad.
Who said that?
You said that.
Oh, you're going to put words in my mouth just because
Yes.
they can't hear us between breaks. What I said, chat, was that aggro was a detriment to my morale, but maybe not. No,
okay.
I would have built it faster. He was awful there. He said he was supervising.
Yeah, I was helping. I was making sure. Mifflin refuses to read the directions, so it's really a testament.
It's 4 screws. It's the easiest to build chair I've ever had. Ease of use through the roof. I don't need you to tell me where the 4 screws that come with the 4 screw holes go.
Apparently, I'm working with a genius in Mifflin. I don't know. I can't stop it. SmiteMax is, needforseat.com. Use code SmiteMax. That's how you get your hands on your easy-to-build maxonomic chair, and you don't need me. Truly, that's true. But it would be faster if I were there, is all I'm saying to you, is really the argument I have to make. Let's get into set number 2, shall we? Tartarus Titans up against Solar Scarabs. Mifflin, two teams that, again, started to raise their level of play towards the end of the Phase 1. Phase 1 playoffs, both of these teams made some noise. I'm expecting some pretty good things from both of these teams moving into Phase 2.
I am as well. We got to check in with Zapman earlier. I was surfing his Twitter between the games here, and he said he will promise to try and use his relics in this set. So if he does, I think you might be able to vote a little bit more so towards the Scarabs with those viewer points. But if we're talking just raw consistency, who's the favorite here, I think the Tartarus Titans are on an upswing.
That is certainly what the records would tell you, but of course this Solar Scarabs team did start to turn up with all of their rookies towards the end of Phase 1, so hard to nail down exactly where they're going to end up. Remember, they actually have a doubleheader this week. They go up against the Jade Dragons tomorrow in the final set, so they've got 2 this weekend. And of course, anytime we're talking about the Solar Scarabs, we've got to be looking at who is going to step up for this team. Among the rookies, Baronic, of course, is going to be the name that everyone is really talking about alongside Layers. These two have worked together very well so far this year.
They have. They've synergized incredibly well. It's been really been playing through the rookies, right? If you want to include Inbound in that squad, these guys have all obviously played together since the SCC, or SCL days, rather. How am I going to forget the league that I played in? They were together. They won the World Championship there, and now they're trying to make a run at SPL together. They've certainly got the synergy, but it's just that adaptation to the SPL meta, figuring out what gods they want to run together, what gods synergize as well. That's really what they need to clean up next as that next step. But certainly that's going to be easy enough to do, especially with professional coach Slaney at the helm.
I mean, Baronic has really started to step his game up as of late. This Tiamat performance at the Phase 1 playoffs was critical in them really stepping up and playing well and moving forward in that tournament. I think that, Baronic, kind of known as that Giannis guy at the very beginning of the year. That's really what was getting banned from him consistently, and for good reason. He looked very good on it. But it's standing out to me, Mifflin, that we go across these clips. It's a lot of different gods.
Yeah, he's got the RYZEN in the back pocket, the Giannis, as you already highlighted. I really associate Ra with Baronic. He really does like that pick, and when he's got that CC core, be it from Layers on a Thor, or really any minute stun or CC, he's going to hit that Searing Pain pretty consistently. But I think that Baronic needs to hone in that god pool a little bit. I want to see him tighten it up, really specialize, and bring each one of those picks to the next level.
We'll have to bring him in and talk to him right now in the pregame interview. Baronic joining us, the mid laner from the Solar Scarabs. And Baronic, thanks for taking the time, of course. Want to ask you about the team's mindset after a good showing at the Phase 1 playoffs. I think ahead of schedule is fair to say with where you guys were at that LAN. Do you still feel like you're at that point now going into Phase 2?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was kind of unfortunate. I think Levi's have been our worst matchup like the whole year. So, I mean, it was just unfortunate to turn out that, we had to face them in the first round.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, really confident going forward.
We were just talking about your god pool and how many different gods you've added in. The Giannis got respect banned at the very beginning of the year and has stayed a respect ban against you for the majority of Phase 1. How much of an effort have you made to expand that god pool and be a little bit more versatile?
Yeah, I always believe, especially as a pro player, you have to have, or try to at least have as much of an extended god pool. I mean, it's very important. Just as a pro player to the team, diversify drafts, open up a lot of options for your team. So that's always been very important for me.
Today you're going up against the Tartarus Titans, and Paul across the way, thought of as maybe already the best mid laner of all time. How exciting is it for you to get a chance to go up against these guys week after week, and what about Paul specifically makes him so good?
Yeah, I always love it. I mean, when I first started scrimming with these boys, I think we exclusively scrimmed against Paul and Chinto, like I did. So it was like, I loved it. I feel like I learned a lot very quick. It's always a pleasure going against them.
Reminds you of going up against me season 2 on the Xbox. Right? Mifflin, why did you laugh? Mifflin spit it out. I'm sure that's what you meant, Baronic, but it's okay that you didn't mention it.
Mistake,
of course. All good, bro. Good luck today, man. Excited to look forward to it.
Appreciate it.
Baronic there joining us before the pregame interview. Miff, you good, man? What was that about?
I think a fly got in here or something, man. I took a bad sip of water. I don't know. It had nothing to do with anything you were saying.
You don't have any water?
Hey,
I haven't seen a fly.
They can't see behind the desk, and there are certainly flies in here. No, there aren't. It's a very clean studio.
Yeah, great. For the sacrifice of your bid, our studio is filthy. Thanks a lot, Miff. Look, on the other side, the Titans, it's not just Paul, but of course, anytime Paul's on a team, he's going to be one of the focal points. I just think the Titans overall, they've looked like so much more of a cohesive unit. And they took the Dragons to 5 games in the Phase 1 playoffs where the Dragons ended up winning overall, but the Titans looked like they might have been their hardest match that week.
Yeah, I think the Titans really elevated their game when they decided, hey, we have Cyclone spin on our team. We could just play around this guy. Let's start putting some emphasis on the duo lane, and that's exactly what's happened. And Cyclone spin since then has been popping off consistently. If he wants to go towards the Magic Hunters, he does incredibly well on that. His Chiron has great early game aggression as well. I think the Tartarus Titans are doing their absolute best, looking their best, when they're controlling the gold free, the neutral objectives, and that seems to be the running strategy week in, week out.
It's just so difficult to pick and ban against this team because, like you said, sometimes they're playing around Cyclone, sometimes they're playing around Paul. They've been playing around Benji a lot as of late and have looked awfully good doing that. Paul is going to play his stuff, man, and he's going to make it look really good. This RYZEN being in meta certainly helps him out a lot. But it's not a coincidence that Paul's oftentimes playing meta gods. This guy's often the one dictating who the meta gods are.
Yeah, he's like, Scylla's kind of cool here, beginning of Season 8. Now Scylla, all of a sudden, in every single casual and ranked game that you play, he decides RYZEN's good. Now the entire community's behind him as well. Paul elevates the picks and maybe not the other way around, or maybe both ways. That's just the type of player that he is. I think maybe that's why we see him play the Morgan so consistently as well. Why even pick? He could just play every single god, regardless of role.
Yeah, let him try his hand at the whole thing. This, of course, from their set up against the Dragons at playoffs, where Paul looked fantastic despite the losing effort. I think that really the key for this Tartarus Titans team, Paul and Cyclone are going to do work in the back line. That's what these guys do.
Just facts.
AURORA and Benji, getting them on their comfort picks, getting them in the position to create space for this back line. And Scary D, of course, that wild card for this team in really every sense. That's what I'm always looking towards to see what the Titans are going to be doing on a weekly basis.
I think if you're betting with Benji, just saying he's going to be able to play at least baseline real good, you're betting right. This guy has been one of the most consistent players to play Smite out of the Soul Lane, full stop. But I think you're right to highlight Scary D as that wild card. Sometimes he'll get 7 kills in the first 7 minutes of the match, right? Sometimes he's playing a magician's vanishing act and he's just not there. It just depends on the day of how well he is playing and how well he feels coming into it. If he's shining, the rest of the team shines with him.
We'll see if he can do that today as we are into picks and bans for game number 1. Fenrir, the first ban off the board, a god whose stock continues to rise, it feels like. Fenrir has looked fantastic, looked great for Fred in the last game, of course. And no Tiamat this time around. Paul, I cannot imagine, is going to be getting his hands on that anytime soon.
No, I wouldn't let Paul play any of the mages if I had my way, but Tiamat certainly on the top of the list of gods I would rather not line up against Paul with. But meanwhile, the Titan's going to toss some respect bans towards the Solar Scarabs mid laner. That Yanis that has been banned out from Baronic game and game and game is going to happen again in this one. Yeah,
going to happen again despite the nerfs to Giannis, which do seem to be pretty impactful, but not impactful enough to let Baronic play it against you, which makes some sense. The Titans going to go back to the mid lane pool. They ban away the RYZEN, knowing that Paul loves that pick. There's certainly a bit of a different look for them. Interesting that they're the ones in the first pick position willing to ban it away.
Yeah, I would have thought that maybe they would have left it available just to take it in that first slot or force out another ban from the Solar Scarabs, but instead they go ahead and remove it from the table. And look, they both have large god pools. I'm talking about Paul and Baronic. I don't think anyone in Smite history has a god pool nearly as large as Paul. So if you're going to target out the enemy mid laner, you better believe Paul's got at least 16 more picks in the back pocket. Doesn't have to worry too much about it.
Very surprised to see this Athena ban that leaves Gilgamesh open. I mean, Athena, not the character she once was. AURORA, very good on that goddess. It's a comfort pick for him. Benji, also maybe the best Athena solo player of all time. Really good in that role. But you leave open Gilgamesh, a little bit scary. That being said, you get some pretty good return picks. Soul and Loki. Loki returning to competitive availability, immediately picked up here by the Scarabs.
It was banned out for the entirety of the last set. Johnny's Loki earning the respect of the opposition here. We'll see whether or not Layers can do that exact same level of work on this pick. And now the Tartarus Titans have just about play of the field. They can take anything that they want. Surprised to see this Hercules locked in. That does mean that it's likely going into the soul lane. You'll have Gilgamesh in the jungle with Yamoja out of support. That is a lot of aggression across the board. You don't even need necessarily the most aggressive hunter to really find pressure in the long lane. That's just the amount of damage Yamoja does to wave. But this pick from the Solar Scarabs was something I was expecting from the Titans. It's very clear that they're going for that double hunter strategy once that soul gets locked in. So I thought maybe we'd see the Titans try and strip it away, but instead, let it through.
Well, I get the Yamoja there for Aurora. They lose some of the ambiguity of their early picks with the Gilgamesh and the Hercules by locking in the Yamoja as well. But we were talking in just a minute ago, when the Titans get a solid front line, they look really difficult to stop. You get a solid front line with your top 3 picks already. So you're feeling pretty good about that at the very least. As Chiron and Osiris are taken off the board by the Scarabs and the Titans respectively. This Soul pickup, I'm curious to whether it's going to go into Baronic's hands or into Zapman's. We see some teams like the Bolts play it almost exclusively in ADC. Barracuda, of course, a specialist on that pick. But you see other teams like the Dragons play it exclusively in mid for Heroine. So good flex opportunity here for the Scarabs.
Yeah, it is. Have we seen Baronic play the Soul so far this year?
Not that I can recall.
I'm not sure of it. He usually likes to play those a little bit further range, just artillery gods. I'm talking the Raz, Athos, things along those lines. But instead now, it could be Soul going towards mid. And we've seen Zeros consistently find first blood on this pick as well. Nice little handshake there from Dave and Aggro on the desk. I'm going to shoutcast that one.
Okay.
Little chair 1 flex.
I guess you have to, yeah. Really good chair 1 flex, Mifflin. We all know exactly what happened now, and everyone is better for it instead of you just breaking down picks and bans.
Well, I did the picks and bans, but you seemed
you
like
were all done.
You were like really.
You don't got anything else to say the whole time?
Well, I mean, there's obviously I'm going to have more to say, Aggro, but they haven't done anything yet. Maybe you should break down the bans.
Oh, should I?
Yes.
Thank you. Morgan banned away by the Solar Scarabs. Did you cover that one? I was handshaking with Dave, as you so nicely pointed out.
No, I was doing the picks.
Cullen as well there for the Tartarus Titans. Now the Scarabs have to lock in their solo laner and either the mid or the ADC, as we were covering just a moment ago. We don't know exactly where that soul is going to go, and it is going to go mid. Zapman getting that Jingwei.
Surprised to see him go towards that Jingwei. Generally, when I think Zapman gets his back put up against the wall, he goes towards things like the Heimdall, a little bit more aggressive picks I associate with him. Maybe realizing that he might be left alone on an island in this game, doesn't want to deal with that aggression from Yamoja is what I was going to say, and now I'm seeing this Khepri hover might shift up what we
no
expect
shot.
to see
Okay,
here.
no shot.
We're trolling, right?
Yeah, that's a troll. 100%.
Okay, it's a hell. Whoa!
Yeah, it's hell. Wait a minute,
That's
it's hell.
Paul.
Like,
That's Paul.
that's weird, but it is Paul. As you mentioned, hell very, very key to Paul's historic success, but we haven't seen her a whole lot recently.
We have not. In Season 8, healing taking a global nerf when you're outside of combat means that Hell's going to have a little bit more trouble keeping her team topped off in these elongated engagements around neutral objectives, be it Gold Fury or Fire Giant, but Yamoja's going to be able to help out a little bit with that as well. Going to expect to see probably a couple onks come through here from the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, and maybe some for the Titans as well, because there's a Vamana on the other team now. Vamana gets picked
Spicy
here
drafts.
by the Solar Scarabs. Yeah, a little bit weird to kick off Phase 2 for both of these teams. We don't see a whole lot of Hell. We don't see a whole lot of Vamana. Both gods kind of hit by those healing reductions, but Hell's getting buffed there on Tuesday. You know, she's getting buffed in the mid-season patch. Not quite through yet on that one. That late-game prowess is nuts. You still have a lot of damage, but there's so much healing already for the Tartarus Titans. Then you add in the, they're already going to build anti-heal against Hercules Yamoja.
Yep.
Then you buy into Hell, and you go, Yeah, definitely get as much anti-heal as you possibly can. I'm just usually not a fan of stacking that much sustain on one team.
Makes you get so much more value from that Ankh. Ankh, of course, reducing some of the healing, and those hit by the Ankh and then receiving heals, taking additional damage afterward. And you better believe a lot of people are going to be hit by heals. You can't really be choosy on your targets with the Emoja bouncing through or with Hell Heal being as large an AoE as it is. Ankhs should be able to find value in every single team fight. Worth noting, though, Aggro, Vamana used to be the Season 4 Classic matchup into Hell. She doesn't have the greatest way to escape them. Just hop into that giant form and chase her down, and hopefully you win that DPS race.
That is true, and you've got a Fafnir Coerce in order to help you out in that
sir.
regard. So you're getting extra DPS, attack speed in that Colossal Fury. I don't know, man. The way it's Season 8, it's 2021. You're picking Vamana still? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. We'll see how it ends up working out for him. We are going to have to throw to a quick break, as it seems a banned skin has been selected, so we got to do a quick remake. Figure we'll give you some music to listen to in the meantime instead of Mifflin play-by-playing a handshake that you can't see.
They did like a golf swing, chat.
We'll be right
back. A little golf swing, and then they like dapped up. Yeah, it was super.
Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock. Coco, arrest me. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock. Coco, arrest me. Out of reach, I go a little insane. I know this mojo will never come clean. Can you rest a little while with me now, honey? I'll never have the time, never be the signs, never took a flight, never know the truth. How you arrested me.
Lo más importante es lo que siento, no que vayamos a hacer. Quiero de esos besos y con exceso que de ti tengo sed. Quiero tenerte, quiero beber del lado encima de tu cuerpo y lento a lento nos vamos a conocer. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Ey, estamos para estar solos, sino para disfrutar. Ey, me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Ey, que sea costumbre, pero no hay nada que me asombre que cuando yo escucho tu nombre. También, no eres Shakira, bebé, pero no me mienten a mí. Quiero esos besos, no sé qué fue, mamita, pero me expreso. Es por ti luchar hasta la muerte. Yeah, contigo tuve suerte. Yeah, tú que matas con tu actitud, como tú no hay nadie más, o al menos no sé. Y si pues no son como ustedes, que baby tú matas con tu actitud. Es que el rol no me da para darte todo el tiempo que tú te mereces, bebé. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. por ti. No me importa desnudar todos mis miedos. No me importa buscarme la vida por algo que me te muero. Yo te tengo, pero es que yo no sé si esto va a ser eterno. Solo hasta las 10. Si eres protagonista de mi vida, bebé. Solo una novela que pasa en TV. No sé, tú que matas con tu actitud. Como tú no hay nadie más, o al menos no sé. Y si pues no son como ustedes, que baby tú que matas con tu actitud. Es que el rol no me da para darte todo el tiempo que tú te mereces, bebé. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Estamos para estar solos, sino para disfrutar. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural.
Welcome back, everybody, to the desk as we're getting ready for Game 1 between the Tartarus Titans and the Solar Scarabs. Apologies again for the delay. One of these days, we will work out how to not pick banned skins. And by we, I don't mean we. I mean players. But, you know, that's okay.
I thought you were going to name drop him. That would have perfectly rhymed. Okay, that's the only hint you're getting from the desk here.
Yeah. Oh,
what
what's
he
up,
said
Gore?
would have rhymed.
Yeah, look at how disappointed Gore is right now. Come down a little bit here, Gore. To make sure, yeah. Look at what you're doing to Gore, blank, for picking banned skins again. Well,
Legitimately
Dave,
the
is your
fifth time
mic
this
even?
season.
Dave's like talking over here, and it's not even live. He's just yapping the whole time. They're chomping at the bit to get in a game here between the Titans and the Scarabs. One more time, Mifflin. Quick thoughts on how you're feeling about the Titans composition versus the Scarabs.
The Titans comp, I think, is going to pose some questions to the Scarabs. They have to answer them properly. Are you going to build enough anti-heal? Are you going to slot it in the right time so you're not falling too far behind in your power spikes? If the Scarabs are capable of answering those questions, I think that this Titans draft is pretty easy to deal with. And the question is, are you going to buy Ankh? And if the question is answered with a yes, I think the Solar Scarabs have a draft that can certainly come out ahead here. In particular, this Loki can have a very easy time closing gap.
Excited to see what Layers are going to be able to do on that pick for sure. If the Scarabs don't buy an Ankh, man, I got nothing for them. I mean, you got I would buy into 2 in this game.
I might first slot it.
Yeah,
out of my support.
Honestly, it might be worth it. We'll see if the Scarabs are able to build enough anti-heal to take down the Tartarus Titans. Let's throw it down to Dave and Gore for game number 1.
Chomping at the bit no longer as the Tartarus Titans and the Solar Scarabs will kick off their first matchup here in Phase 2 of Season 8 of the SPL. My name is Dolson. Gore Miser's with me. Doug, of course, spectating for us here. And what should be a very interesting matchup, Gore. Look, the Tartarus Titans, throughout the Phase 1 playoffs, especially in the group stage, put together some good performances. They had one of the longest win streaks going on in Phase 1 of Season 8 after they started to catch some heat. And the Solar Scarabs, I feel like this is such an unpredictable team. They show up, they beat the Dragons, they don't show up, and they fall by the wayside. Plenty of intrigue here in this one.
I mean, you're looking at a team that knocked the Kings out of the playoffs for Phase 1, and a team that unfortunately had a lot of struggles in the process of getting there, didn't have the playoffs they wish they could have as well. And so there's, I want to say, maybe more pressure on the Scarabs to perform here, just because I think they want to start off Phase 2 a little more spice into it, right? Like,
yeah.
Phase 1, you had the warm-up time. You definitely struggled for, 4 weeks in a row before finally starting to really kick off and find your stride. I think if they could start this phase a lot cleaner, it would feel just better for them, right? A lot more of a moral uplift and would be able to keep them going. And this is a pretty decent draft. I mean, yes, you've got a lot of healing on the other side. You've got a Gilgamesh on the other side as well
Yep.
to handle. But they're bringing in the spice. I mean, Loki has been banned every single game that he's been available this week until now, so this is a great look for Layers. Plus, if I remember correctly, he's like 1 kill from getting 100 this year, so
Hey,
maybe
nice.
that'll help kind of drive him forward. But also, I mean, when was the last time we saw Vamana, period, let alone
man.
when he's actually coming into the meta?
Yeah, this is my dream. There's plenty to talk about in this draft and plenty to talk about already in the mid lane. Paul just shy of maybe the mana to keep engaging onto Baronic, and the Soul will have to back away beneath the Tier 1 tower. My dream here, Gore Miser, because there's plenty to look at on
There's
both
so
sides.
much.
I just get to bring something up, and you can tell me a little bit about it here. Where do we think Hell is at the moment? Because when the healing changes came through, Hell and other healers kind of started to fall by the wayside, but if anyone's going to make something like this work, I'll pause as SOT has a chance for a solo kill in the solo
One more!
lane.
Oh, the minions!
He's going to turn it around, the knockback, and the auto attack is enough, and down goes the Vamana. Minute and 53 in.
That's not the start you really want, is it, Dave? You're coming in, you're playing somebody. It's Vamana's first game this year, so it's something that he is. He's not been picked up. I believe there was like a little mishap sometime earlier. But like, nobody's been looking at him. He hasn't really been discussed. I'm interested to see the build. I honestly am more curious as to what he's going to do next week, because I think there's going to be potentially some meta changes, like the movement speed, the boots being taken out, that could, for all I know, benefit Vamana of all people. But he used to be really big on sticking to the backline, right? It's something that Mifflin had kind of mentioned it, like Season 4. Like, you would build Vamana, you would go for a thing like essentially a Fatalis at the time, but Hastened Ring now, I guess, is the equivalent of it, where you just, my goal is to auto-attack you and stick to you, and it doesn't necessarily matter if I kill you or not.
Sure.
I'm going to make you so uncomfortable you can't be in the fight, and if you do that to someone like a Hell, you kind of neutralize the healing. I don't know that we're going to be able to see something like that out of the solo or troll here. I think this, especially now that he's gone a little more, let's say, supporty with his starter item choice, he's maybe looking to be a more facilitator, and they've got a lot of anti-heal or a lot of healing on the other side, so if he can go something anti-heal oriented, maybe if he goes attack speed, something like a Toxic Blade, like, it all fits together still.
It does, and look, it was a 2-level differential just a moment ago for SOT, so now the solo lane could have some intrigue as the Vamana gets a little bit tankier. The potential for that to reoccur definitely diminishing, but that's kind of why you pick a Hercules, not only for the ability to bully into the late game, but there's plenty of damage on the table there, and Benji makes great use of it. Cyclone Spin will ult forward. Zapman responds quickly with a pair of beads of his own, so now for the next 155 seconds or so, this dual lane of the Scarabs got to play a little bit more cautiously.
Yeah, about to have his ult. Zap should be able to farm up to that in a second, but they go back to base, and they just pop off over here in mid.
Yeah, Veronic down for the first time this game. Solar Scarabs lose their mid laner. So you've got a gap growing over in the solo lane, or has grown and hopefully stabilizes if you're the Scarabs, and a potential growing gap now. Paul is in a great spot here as well. That's not like an instance where he had to go back. He will go back now. Obviously has enough gold to complete up an item of choice here. But a nice 1-level lead, at least half-level lead over Veronic here for this Hell.
And he's starting to get over the part, like, the worst part of the game for Hell is the first few levels, because you just don't have the mana to do anything, right? I mean, you are borderline useless. You go in, you throw about 3 of them, and you get a heal, you get some damage, and then you're done for the count. You have nothing left to offer until something can come up. And now that he's got his boots online, you can see that that's not really affecting him so much. I'm excited to see what this Hell can bring. Because, and you had kind of brought it up later, and I might have to wait a little bit to bring it up, because Inbound's looking to get aggressive on Aurora.
Yeah, and he'll grab a hammer over onto Aurora as well. Inbound has the Sunder, should he choose to let that one fly. He does let it fly, and it's onto Aurora, but there's no follow-up damage. Instead, Inbound left alone. And the Tartarus Titans collapse on in, and it's Scary D with his second kill of the game. This was a Gilgamesh that was left open. Remember, the Dust talked about it a little bit. Athena got banned out. Gilgamesh was left open. But the action gore might not stop there.
I mean, Zap is the one that's going to be in a little bit of trouble. Has his ult, so I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, should be able to at least get away there, but
that was close.
Players doesn't have the same real escape.
This is chaos in all the wrong ways if you're the Solar Scarabs. There's only 3 kills on the board. I say only, but that's a great start here, 5 minutes, 20 seconds into the game. Even though these kills aren't falling, the last couple barely get away from the Solar Scarabs. Zapman had to play that airstrike perfectly because Cyclone Spin would have got that ult off with Zap not having beads. So you're escaping by the skin of your teeth, so that's a small win if you're the Scarabs. But all of this pressure gore, whether it's mid, solo, SOTs, down about a level and a half. I saw a 2-level differential a moment ago. Even over in duo, just feels like everything's pushing against you.
I feel bad saying this, because it's bad memories for the Scarabs.
Oh, and I want you to say it even more.
They've had sets where games 2 and game 3 are phenomenal. But they get absolutely shut down in game number 1. Like, they have had game 1s where you would argue whether or not they were even playing as a team, as opposed to just 5 people in separate roles, right? There are a lot of the things that I've seen, specifically where Inbound died, that kind of screams communication issue. But they're really good at tightening it up after those issues happen. And this is a good example of it, right? They get the left side Scorpion. It opens up some opportunities for them. I think it's definitely not been the start they wanted, but it is nothing that they haven't fought before, and it's something that they've come back from before as well.
There's a potential 2v2 that turns into a 3v2 that turns into a 3v1 as SOT blinks away here. Titans may be looking for the dive. Aurora does have River's Rebuke. Good timing, though. I'm not sure if Aurora sniffed that one out, but blue buff respawns, and Aurora will end up going back, helping out Benji, invade in onto this blue buff. Keep SOT as far behind as you can, because the Vamana did end up closing that 2-level gap down to 1 level now, probably about half a level here. So Benji still being able to pull that advantage is big. But now Inbound pokes his head around the wrong corner. Cyclone Spin, use the ultimate here. Paul is in range for some damage, but Inbound leaps away. Ooh. The range from Cyclone Spin just short, but Aurora's going to rotate in from mid. Will Aurora have enough damage to get the kill onto Inbound? The stun is not there. The River's Rebuke doesn't catch out either, but Scary D attempting to close the gap on the back line. Layers has gotten Cyclone Spin, but immediately goes down to Paul.
I mean, look, change his name to Houdini. Inbound should not have gotten out of there. Escape artist galore. That is insane for him. Unfortunately, though, they still lose Layers. He might lose more. Zap has no mana after that dash.
Yeah, he does have beads, though, so probably not able to use the airstrike, but able to use the beads if need be. Let's see how far the Titans want to chase this one. Paul will poke down some damage, but it's a purple buff that is now spawned on up. There's a red buff awaiting over around the side here if that's where the Titans want to look. Actually, red buff ends up getting dropped down. Over the last couple minutes, Gore, I think the Scarabs lost every single buff across the map.
And it's not a comfortable spot you want to be in. Layers got a speed buff, so there's
you're right.
a little bit of a benefit.
Layers, that's right. Well, just respawn. He just got so not factually wrong, but you're right. Layers did get the speed buff at least.
I mean, he's able to pull a lot, but look, this is a rough early game to say the least, and this is maybe your worst case scenario. I mean, your Vamana, like you have one pick that hasn't really been, well, has not been seen at all this year so far. And you're trying to prove it off. I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do, because at least when I look at actually every member on the Scarabs, even this Loki, I feel like they're transitioning into a 5v5. They play really well together in their grouping, but this is a bad start for you because the only team that could do better for you in grouping is a team with, say, you know, something like a Yamoja and a Hell on it, right? Like, that healing is nowhere near as oppressive as it was last year, where you take one step out of the fight, you heal up back to full, and all of a sudden you get to come back in.
Yep.
That global nerf really does kind of help take it down a notch. But admittedly, it wasn't enough. I mean, you had mentioned it earlier. Yes, it was enough to knock Hell out of the #1 spot. She's getting banned every game or first picked. But I don't think it's enough that they're necessarily quote-unquote bad. It's just there were other mids better than them.
Better
right?
pick,
that you
sure.
would pick up a little more often. I think you had mentioned it earlier, but if someone's going to make this look good, it's 100% going to be Paul.
Yeah, she gets a Paul buff. Hell definitely gets a Paul buff, and so far it's looked good. 1-0-1. Aurora, though, before my eyes, has gone missing, but then Paul rotates in, and the Paul buff working well. Now Hell on the board. Their second kill of the game. Baronic's going to disapparate on away here, but Scary D, he's got the gap closed, and Paul's got the double. Tartarus Titans collapse in, make it a 2-for-1.
I mean, now Inbound, it's kind of hung out to dry. Where are you going to go here? You can go on a long run, and they decide he's not even worth chasing at this point because well, admittedly, just better targets on the map. With the amount of healing they have online and the lack of anti-heal, I mean, Divine Ruins coming online, this is going to change over the course of the game for the Scarabs as they pick those items up. But early on, this is what you can expect, right? Paul, Aurora are going to be nigh unstoppable until you're able to get something back there or some items online that slow them down, because otherwise it's just going to keep Scary D in the fight longer. Same thing for Cyclone.
Oh, Zapman will dash away here, has to use the beads. Airstrike awaiting around the corner. But I think the Tartarus Titans have done what they came to do. That's invade the purple buff, get the purple buff, and keep Zapman just a little bit behind. Now 1 level behind Cyclone Spin on this Heimdall. So it's a fantastic start back to Phase 2 here for the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah.
They've gotten themselves 2,000 gold in the lead over the Solar Scarabs. And Gore, what's even scarier is thinking this Hercules has kind of maintained that 1.5 level lead over the last few minutes. We haven't seen these solo laners get in these fights just yet. Benji's going to be at a big power point when he's able to rotate in and impact these fights.
That's the thing that's really fun to look at with the two warriors, because they have distinct play styles that are going to be like Hercules. You know what he's going to do when he comes in. He's looking for knockups, he's looking for pushbacks, he's looking to displace somebody on the other side, similar to what you expect out of like when Sobek's on the other team. His goal is to lock someone down, whether it's for himself or for his team, doesn't really matter. Someone's not going to play in that fight because of Benji. SOT wants to do the same thing, but it's completely different means. He actually has to dive a little further. And so I'm going to keep my eyes out. If the Titans want to, one of the best items against Vamana is going to be some anti-heal. I won't be surprised if somebody picks a little bit of it up, because it'll help deal with him when he's in his ult, and that would shut down SOT mostly throughout the engagement. The question is then, who do you throw that on? Like Benji, he already went the teleport. Maybe you want him to get a blink, so that's a... oh, he's already got the beads, if I look at the actual relics
They do look very similar to Vision Shard at a glance, right?
And so now you're a little curious, because you're like, okay, well, he's playing it safe. What exactly is Aurora going to pick up? Because Yamoja with the Sunder maybe doesn't need the blink, but where you pick up that relic or that anti-heal is going to matter for the Titans. just as much as for the Scarabs.
That's right. We've approached that level 12 mark for a couple players over on the Solar Scarabs. Wondered how many Cursed Onks we would see. The desk figured we'd need at least one, and inbound seems to be the target for where you'll go with at least the one that you'll have if you're the Solar Scarabs. Not on SOT over on the other side. Here's that man looking for a red buff invade. So the Solar Scarabs not backing away from finding some map pressure of their own, but the onslaught begins here for the Tartarus Titans. That man is able to escape, but he cannot participate in the rest of this fight. Inbound, slowed on down. Watch out for Benji around the back line. His layers left to his own devices, and death is what he finds on the other end. Tartarus Titans find a pick. No Fury to be gathered just yet, or Pyromancer, so it looks like some wave pushing in the mid lane.
Again, I'm waiting for what is the inevitable power creep of the Scarabs right now. Contagion just now picked up, so that's a second anti-heal item that's going to be online for the Scarabs. But it's starting to take a little longer than you'd like if you're a Scarabs fan. Like, you're 13 minutes in, that is nowhere near. I mean, that's what, maybe a midway point for a a regular game, 26 to 28 minutes. But you're looking at it and you're like, 2,000 to 3,000 gold. The Titans are in a much more comfortable position right now to drive this one home. And the map state, it's still mostly equal. Neutral objectives have been going to the Titans. They got the Fury, they got the Pyro, and they've got that tier 1 in mid. That is really the key that's opened up a lot of this map. These buff invades are going to keep happening from them because they can just continue to get aggressive around there, and they haven't had to be worried about it. And now it's just going to be this question of where you retaliate as the Scarabs. And I think a lot of it is waiting for some of this gold and some of this experience, maybe playing a little bit of catch-up right now to get to that point.
Gore, I don't know what. Do your games end in 26 minutes? Every time I play a ranked game, it goes it goes an hour long. I don't know. We are
the average SPL league.
Right, there we go. Right, we're in the early stages. We're in the early moments of a ranked game that I play. But yeah, for these guys, this game starting to get to a point where the Tartarus Titans, if they continue this pace, could be looking at Fury, could be looking at FG over the next 10 minutes or so. Zatman, things have quieted down, luckily for him, over here on the left-hand side. Plenty of pressure pushing into the Jingwei, but the fact that there's 0 deaths over there for Zatman, I think, is a pretty big indicator of the safety of this pick. I mean, we've hashed and rehashed the safety of the Jingwei and why you might pick up something like this, but I think Zatman really showing you why here. There's been so much pressure pushing against this left-hand side of the map, and Zatman's been able to maintain a 0 in the old death column, and that's important. Trying to keep scale with this Heimdall. It's a 2-level differential, but getting this Jingwei to a point where you can make full value out of the Fafnir and that buff later in the game, very important.
That's the combo I think that's really going to benefit, as you had just highlighted, the Scarabs, is not just the Jingwei plus Fafnir, but being able to get the team-wide coerce with Baronic on Soul, Zapman on Jingwei. Like, they get a Fire Giant, all 6 towers and at least a Phoenix go down on the side of the Titans. They have such good tower clear and objective just control in that. And I want to see the Scarabs kind of use that to their advantage. The downside is winning the fight prior. Right now, they're at the deficit, not just in gold, but in experience, and you can see how much that's affecting them. I mean, Paul, he's building mostly tanky as of this point. I mean, the Charon's coin is going to give him a little bit of power, but he is looking for survivability, and he's got a level and a half up on Baronic.
Whoa, Layers gets jumped on here by Scary D. Stun, just shy of connecting. Benji not happy with it, though. He'll look for some range underneath the tier 2, but Layers is going to walk away from that one with his life. Primal Fury is up and available here, and inbound transforms. You got Zatman Baronic there. The Coerce will help you melt this one down quickly, but Cyclone Spin, the lone member of the Tartarus Titans, checking. Watch out for the mid lane rotation here. The Titans as well are going to close that gap. Bit of a leash here from the Solar Scarabs as the Titans rotate in. Looks like no pushback this time, and the Titans will grab another Fury.
Now that just showcases, I think, the control the Titans have on the game right now, right? The Scarabs, they get that to 2/3 health most of the time. If you see a single member over there and you don't know where everyone else is, you know the rotation's about to come through. But you maybe stick up a fight there, but they are, at this point, just uncomfortably behind. Trying to fight that one would not have been worthwhile to trade their lives over. So I admire them for backing off as much as they did, but at the same time, more neutral objectives to the Titans just furthers that lead and makes things a little more difficult. Oddly enough, though, SOT has been doing a great job farming. He actually has the advantage over Benji this time around after that first blood. It's the first time this game that he's been able to kind of pull that ahead, and that's the big opener, right? We still haven't gotten to really see this Vamana do anything this game. He's been just trying to play catch-up outside of that early fight and that first blood. He's just been silent, and I wouldn't mind seeing SOT be the big pivot point for this game, the kind of big talking point for the Scarabs, because you're playing something new. I want to see what it can do.
And how important that Contagion's going to be, and that's sort of what we're looking for earlier on when the solo laners rotate in, but now both of them have kind of just been okay with the catch back up that SOT has had, chilling out and hanging out here in lane. We do have a Cursed Ankh pickup. We figured it would be from inbound here. Ticks over to level 12, picks up the Ankh for
And
himself. And upgraded it, and that's going to be hyper important here for keeping this Tartarus Titans line up in check. But Gore, up to this point, you know, I think itemizing against healing is very important. But in your eyes, has healing really made all the difference up to this point? It feels like the Titans have just found this big burst of damage time and time again. The fights haven't necessarily drawn out just yet. Maybe that's because they're playing around some of the anti-heal. I'll hold that thought as Paul gets jumped on there in the mid lane. Does get a little bit of healing, keeps himself right around half HP. Zapman pushes down the tier 1 tower over and left. Titans were considering Pyro, maybe FG. It would have been a sneaky FG. But instead we'll rotate back to mid.
Well, the thing, I think, just carrying on your point there, that makes the Ankh a little bit better, because like you said, the healing hasn't necessarily gotten out of control. It's not the end-all, be-all, because they've just been winning the fights, right? The Titans haven't necessarily had to use the healing afterwards, although it has been just enough to keep someone, specifically like Scary D or Cyclone Spin, in the fight a little bit longer. But it's the upgrade. Both of the supports have it here. And that's where it makes the big difference to me, is because it's not just the anti-heal anymore. They're taking more damage now, and that is the real key to me. I think it's 20% that you're going to be now receiving, and that is a huge upgrade in the middle of a team fight. You hit 3-4 people with that, you get it on the back line or the front line, really doesn't matter. You're going to be able to burn them down. Great counter for the Vamana, but if you're looking to burn down a Hell, looking to kill off a jungler, that is a great opener for inbound, and he's already been playing pretty aggressive. He likes to get into their face, so I expect he's going to be able to get it on at least a few people. It's all about the follow-up at that point from the Scarabs.
Looks like, you know, if we're continuing on with SOT here, he's got Contagion, Toxic Blade a little bit later on, something in the Katana tree to finish things out. I think we should give some love to that starter item pickup, because it happened after that solo kill that the Titans were able to get. I'll hold that thought, though, because it's the Solar Scarabs who are starting up the FG now, and it is going quickly. Coerce doing tons of work here. The FG is taken low, and the Solar Scarabs sneak this one away, but you gotta win the fight afterwards. Instead, the Solar Scarabs want nothing to do with it. They'll back away. Inbound will be a sacrifice if he's not able to get away, and it looks like he might. That is a big win for the Solar Scarabs.
I mean, and that's that burn, that objective shred when you have the quote-unquote double hunter. But I don't know if you take this fight.
Well, Scary D goes in alone and has to leave immediately after SOT transforms. We're going to see the Vamana in action. River's Rebuke just walked on through by the Vamana, and SOT now doing his best to chase down Scary D. He'll do you one better. He'll get the kill. The Solar Scarabs get FG +1.
I wanted to see what he could do when he rotates into the fight, and he delivers on that one. And granted, it's 3 towers to 4 right now, right? That's maybe a big swing. The Titans just picked up that tier 2 in mid. Those that disengage from the fight early are able to at least get a little bit of gold. But Dave, I see a Soul, a Jingwei with a Coerce buff that can be thrown onto them, and a Fire Giant. Those towers mean nothing on the side of the Titans right now. And that is a great pickup, and just right in the middle of nowhere for the Scarabs to walk into the FG. They knew that nobody was going to be around. I mean, look at the ward coverage. This is a really smart play from them, and a great way to take that lead that the Titans have and just strip it down to nothing.
Yeah, things starting to shrink now. Gold and XP-wise. Actually, gold has gone a bit in the wrong direction as Benji was able to push down a couple towers over there in the mid lane. So, Solar Scarabs now with an opportunity. I mean, you'd maybe call things even here, given the value of the FG buff, especially if you're able to get this Oni Fury here on the back end. Could be a bit of a roundabout engage as SOT throws some damage in towards the Tartarus Titans. A big grouping now from the blue side, leaving Benji on his own over towards the left. These are such sticky, intricate fights, so difficult to position yourselves. You don't know if they're in a moment the Scarabs will turn around and find an engage on you, but instead, Scarabs will back away.
This is the hard part to re-engage. You both have multiple forms of sustain now. The Fire Giant buff is going to be incredibly helpful. But neither of you really have Secure. That's the awkward part. The reason that they had to drop that Primal Fury earlier, that Soul ult can be helpful. So Baronic might be the difference maker right now.
Well, front line starting to get whittled away. Inbound will transform over to the side. The Scarabs take down the Oni Fury for the time being, and it looks like yet again we'll try to leave this fight. Paul having to say something about it, though. SOT chain CC'd against the wall, and it's Cyclone Spin who grabs the kill. Now here's where Sustain will play a big role if the Tartarus Titans can keep pushing forward.
And you've got to pay attention to in-combat, out-of-combat healing, right? A few more seconds, that healing's going to take a dramatic drop in what it's going to be able to provide. But in the middle of the fight, that's where Paul is going to be incredibly useful. You wait out that Ankh, Yes, there's a Divine Ruin. Yes, there's the Contagion. There's as well as that Toxic Blade. Now the Hasten Katana coming through.
Yep.
So Solo Patrol is about to become, I think, the biggest pressure point that the Scarabs have. Their win condition, in my eyes, relies on this Vamana having success. And based on what we just saw out of that CC train, if his ult's not up, the Titans know how to deal with it.
Oh, see if the Solar Scarabs can stay alive. It's still 15 seconds without SOT. Benji has the push. Back against the wall goes inbound. The left side Phoenix will fall down here shortly, and it looks like that's all the Titans want. You don't often see that, Gormizer. The team
With
gets
the
the FG, gets pushed back in, and their Phoenix ends up falling.
I mean, having to defend right there, it feels awkward. And that's been the game for the Scarabs, right? I mean, early on, the first 10, 15 minutes, it was just absolutely nothing from them. I mean,
Right.
it was very much running straight into a wall. And now they're bouncing back. They've had some really good shot calls. That's an unfortunate moment. No beats, no ult for SOT, so he wasn't really able to clap, but now he has beats and ult with that Hasten Katana pickup as well. Again, I'm harping a lot on this Vamana, but because of what I've seen, Baronic, Zapman, we know what Sol and Jingwei do in these scenarios. We know what Layers is going to try to do. I mean, go back, watch some of the Johnny games from the beginning of this year. The reason it's a must ban against the Valkyries is because his performance on Loki changes it. I want to see Layers go for a big loop around, SOT to just pile right through the middle. I mean, does not care about the O-line for the Titans, and get back to their QB, sack down whoever you can there.
Gore, you're giving me. You can't be talking about a Bengals fan sitting next to you. You're talking about people not caring about people not caring about O lines. You know who doesn't care about offensive lines? Anyone that plays the Cincinnati Bengals. So there you go. Thanks, Gore. I appreciate you putting your chair one on inadvertent blast. I think you didn't mean it, but definitely struck a bit of a chord there. We'll see if they can turn it around this season. We'll see if the Solar Scarabs can turn around the way that this game has been going. Zapman has pretty consistently been pushing down this left-hand side of the map, so now it's going to be an open Phoenix on left for the Solar Scarabs as well, but you got to watch out for Benji making a loop.
And that FG buff just wore off as well, maybe, 30-ish seconds before it comes
was a big
through.
fight.
And Benji, if he gets a good setup or a good pick here, with that knockup missing, I think this is a good way to disengage.
Layers does catch the pile drive and a little bit of damage from the excavate. Scary D looking to re-engage. That'll force the ultimate out of Zapman, who has to leave on this Jingwei, but Benji continuing to push forward. The cooldown on the pull will be up just in a bit, but instead the Solar Scarabs will survive on this one. FG is back up. You got to look towards the ultimates in a moment like this. Scary D used his, Benji used his. Zapman has that ultimate down. But you imagine still, I don't know, wishy-washy's not a great word, but still in a balance enough that this would be a risky one for the Tartarus Titans to immediately go for the FG. Or they might do it anyway.
I mean, you have to get aggressive onto it again. This is where the clear comes through. But you have so much healing that you're not worried about taking damage from the FG, right? That's actually part of the reason that dance is so dangerous. You walk into the FG pit, you take some unnecessary damage. That's the difference between life or death. But with Paul and Aurora here, you're not that stressed about it if you're the Titans. I mean, hell, Benji has so much healing on his own. I doubt he's worried about anything, let alone whether or not he has a hell and a Emoja behind him. So I once again, look, I'm going to keep talking about SOT 9 times out of 10 because he keeps making the big differences, and you had highlighted it, you pointed to it earlier for me, and I'll actually talk about it now, but this animosity that he's picked up, something I will admit was not expecting.
All right. Agreed.
Yeah, that 4% of your max health as magical damage to enemies and structures feels pretty good when you're using that for your basic attacks, and it fits into the playstyle of Vamana, and so I like him getting aggressive and just beating on the front line here. But when he gets to the back line, when it comes to towers, he's going to be a big playmaker as well. And that's the strongest part. The AAs on the side of the Scarabs are just too strong.
Agreed. Now look, there's a bit of an advantage here for the Tartarus Titans as Layers has had to go back to base to deal with the minions that made their way in onto the Titan. Excavate flies on over towards the left, is inbound left alone, has to transform here, and that'll keep him in the fight just a bit longer. SOT swinging away on Scary D. Will the Vamana be able to do enough? Yes, he will for the time being, and look, the sustain keeps him in the fight even longer. Will SOT grab another? No, Cyclone Spin turns around the damage. Benji doing serious work in the back line of the Solar Scarabs. It's Hercules against the world here on the right-hand side. Paul rotates in for a double. It's 3 down for the Scarabs.
Look, this is one of those things. The Titans are just carrying on what they started this game doing, right? They are in the lead. They had the level advantage. They know what they're doing, and that's just good focus. I mean, they had to invest a lot to stopping SOT there, but Bobby goes in and inbound, unfortunately for him, it loses half his health bar before the Scarabs are really ready
Yep.
to engage. I think there's where some of the communication, some of the issues are cropping up for them. It's just when they want to fight and how they want to engage on it. I think that's still a good-looking fight for the Scarabs. Unfortunate that they lose everybody I think they do. And the Titans, I mean, they take advantage of everything that has been given to them. The early game, they won it hard enough. They were able to translate it. They lost that FG with a great call from the Scarabs. With this one, oh, they're not stressed at all. They've cleaned that up easily. And with a, 6,000 gold lead now, 2 Phoenixes that are still exposed, 1 that got taken down by those fire minions again, they are in prime position to just take this game.
If anything, the Scarabs FG made the gold a little bit more interesting, but the Titans still able to find a Phoenix underneath that that initial fire giant that the Scarabs were able to grab. So no sweat off the Tartarus Titans back, not at least in that moment. Look, nobody's been able to find Paul here. SOT had his best look in that fight. It was a 4v1. And SOT got a kill and nearly another over onto Paul, but Cyclone Spin was able to get enough damage in on there. Gore, you're going to be hard-pressed to win any sort of game when the opposing mid laner is 5-0-4 with the build that Paul has gone for. And it's so difficult because we've talked about SOT and that being the answer to get in there, but I think you got to throw some eyes towards layers. I think you did as well, talking about, hey, you need to wrap around the back, find something here. Outside of SOT, the backline just hasn't been under pressure.
And that's the biggest issue. I think Layers hasn't really been able to impact a lot. Unfortunately, when Inbound goes in for the impact, he's getting melted because of the focus from the Titans. So he hasn't been able to have the impact I think that they've been wanting out of the Fafnir here for the Scarabs. That's a lot of archers to have to deal with. A lot of melee minions to deal with, too. With fire minions, or sorry, not fire minions, fire giant on your side.
There you go, you can clear it.
That's where things are going to be a little more choppy right now. The defense from the Scarabs, it's going to be big, but like you said, you have to look at Layers. Baronic's damage, Zatman's damage as well. I mean, Zatman's got less damage than Inbound right now. He's got to be able to get into these fights.
That's right, the Jingwei has just not been there. On one side, it feels like the backline has had free and clear opportunity to free cast the entire game. On the other side, it's felt like the exact opposite. The Tartarus Titans knocking on the door of a Game 1 win here as Benji's made his way underneath the mid lane Phoenix, but has he bitten off just a little bit too much here? Scary D stunned down on the right-hand side, and SOT finds the kill. Scary D has got to get something here, but instead SOT, he'll press down on the gas pedal. He'll look to chase down the Tartarus Titans.
I mean, that's an unfortunate moment there to lose Layers, but SOT staying alive I think is a big key. Look, I'm going to throw him under the bus since I just did it to Zap, but Layers barely has more damage than Inbound right now, but they have to defend, Dave. This is where things get so awkward. Those fire minions on left, soon enough on right, are going to cause so much trouble.
Baronic goes down to Cyclone Spin. Now Inbound backing away towards his own fountain here. All 3 Phoenixes are going to be down. Hey, sustain. This is another moment where you want a little bit of it on your side. Fire minions have already done some serious work to the Titan here. It's down to half HP, and it'll be down to 0 HP shortly. Paul will end this game unstoppable, and the Tartarus Titans grab a win just shy of 30 minutes.
So hell works, is what I learned out of that one. What, 7-0-5, like you said? Effective of 12 kills. Feels pretty good to be able to pick that one up and run it the way they did. But I think the Scarabs had a lot of answers that looked good, just didn't execute. I think if they are able to not be in such a large deficit going into that mid game, right? If they cleaned up that early game, they transitioned so much better into those late game fights. I think a lot of that was fighting from behind anyway. They could keep up a lot of the themes, at least, of that draft, especially against what the Titans brought. And I think it works better if they play it a second time.
Tartarus Titans, look, their hot streak continues. That they fall out of the Phase 1 playoffs maybe earlier than they had wanted to, but coming into Phase 2, they're starting to look good here in their first set up against the Solar Scarabs. We'll see if they can replicate, though, in Game 2 right after this.
Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
I can't let you go, baby. I just wanna tell you that. No, 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 no. Yeah. All of my friends my boy, you best beware. And though deep down, I know I might be headed for teardrops. Now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No, no. 'Cause I love you, baby. I can't let you go, baby. I gotta tell you that I won't. I've been looking for love so true. When I was down and out, along came you. Though you might be a liar and a cheat too, I just can't quit you now 'cause I love you. Yes, I do. I can't let you go, baby. I can't let you go, baby. 'Cause I love you, I love you, I love you. No, 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 no. Cause I love you, baby. No, 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 no. Can't let you go. Cause I love you, cause I love you, yeah. There was a time I didn't have romance, but after I met you, I felt it was my chance. But nobody tells me good things about you, baby. I'm gonna stay right here, and I don't mean maybe, yeah. I can't let you go. I can't let you go, yeah. I can't let you go, yeah. I can't let, I can't let, I can't let, yeah. I can't let, I can't let, yeah. You can't tell me to let go, baby. 'Cause I love you, yeah. 'Cause I love you, yeah.
City of mine, how I love the city of mine.
Fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is ALIENWARE. Yeah, that ALIENWARE. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These ALIENWARE AURORA RYZEN Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but ALIENWARE is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these ALIENWARE AURORA RYZEN Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true. I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the ALIENWARE 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with ALIENWARE for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/ALIENWARE and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of ALIENWARE's best products.
Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com. And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Thanks again to Alienware for being the title sponsor of the SMITE Pro League here in Season 8. Of course, we are also running a giveaway currently that you got to be getting in on. You can type !giveaway in the chat or head on over to SMITE Pro on Twitter and check out their pinned tweet. All you've got to do is enter. And they are giving away 5 25-inch Alienware gaming monitors. And Mifflin and I were literally just talking about it. We really wish we had some of these. These things are absolutely nuts.
They really are, man. My monitor, I'm pretty sure, only is like 30 hertz. I've got a beast PC. I'm running Smite 150 frames. I promise my stream might not reflect it, but I'm only seeing 30, man. You got to get a monitor like this.
Got to get a monitor like that, absolutely. Now, before we get into breaking down this game, I do have to harken back something that happened in the pregame of game number 1. Mifflin laughed at me whenever I talked about Season 2 and Season 3 in my gaming career. Mifflin, these are our career KDAs in competitive Smite. You want to look down?
Our KDAs?
That's a 3.6
Wait, are you including
for
SPL for me?
Probably.
Well, don't do that.
I don't know. Too bad. 2.3 over there, looking mighty low, if you ask me. There's a 3.6 you're looking at right here, and maybe you give a little bit of respect to that, huh?
I was out there playing against the Barracudas, the Omegas, the Bushes, the Zero Garzes. You had to compete against
me.
I
had to compete against you, and it was free for me.
I literally retired you.
You won one game.
And you
won
quit after
one
that.
game.
And
I
you
got
quit.
hired after that.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
You're welcome, hi-rez.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mifflin, because where do you think you would be if it weren't for that? And we're bringing it down.
Here,
okay.
still?
Yeah, probably not. Anyways, we'll see what happens here as we move along in this death segment. I don't know if we're going to be able to recover from this point. We've already gotten a little bit too animated. The Solar Scarabs nearly make the comeback happen in game number 1, but it's ultimately a little bit too much, and the Tartarus Titans are the victors. The healing came through in a big way, Miff, and despite the cursed onks and despite the Fire Giant call that worked out really well for the Scarabs, it just wasn't enough.
I saw 2 critical mistakes from the Solar Scarabs there. They weren't utilizing their separate onk timing properly. Very often in these team fights, you see one onk pop through, hit 4 people, and then literally half a second later, another onk pops through. You gotta stagger those cooldowns if you want to find the full value. And the other issue is how many times was SOT able to close gap onto Paul in this hell and just didn't have enough backup to finish off these kills. This clip right here, a perfect example of it. He was slamming this hell for, 10 seconds unmitigated, just didn't have the help he needed to finish off these critical kills.
A lot of really close calls for SOT, who made the Vamana look really good, I thought. This was the low light, though, as he nearly got the solo kill on the Benji. So close. One auto.
Oh, no.
And then Benji pulls him back and lets the minions do the dirty work for him. Easy solo kill for Benji right there. But the backline was just a little bit too much for the Solar Scarabs in this game. Paul on the Hell and Cyclone on the Heim, just really difficult to lock down.
It was, man, and you'd think that they had the tools, the Scarabs that is, to lock it down. You've got gods like Loki who can just close gap incredibly easily, use that Assassinate to get involved as quickly as you want. You got gods like Vamana who can just sit on this hell for as long as you want, but it just, even throughout all of that, the Tartarus Titans were able to withstand that aggression and then utilize their healing yet again to win out in these elongated team fights, despite what was a incredibly good call for the Fire Giant from Solar Scarabs. That's nuts that they were able to go into it. They were 8-2, I believe was the slash line, or 2-8 rather. They were not the ones with 8 kills, but get the Fire Giant on 4 members, but it kind of fizzled from there. They weren't quite able to push it into the towers.
Really, really good objective play in that game from the Scarabs, but subpar team fighting is the way I would put it. You're not going to be able to beat a team with that much sustain if you don't team fight well, and that's really what ends up being their downfall in this game. That being said, Scarabs in game 1 usually pretty rough. That's historically what they were in phase 1. Sometimes really bad in those game 1s. And then no matter how bad they were, and no matter how much they lost by, game 2, and a lot of times game 3, they end up looking a lot better. We'll see if that's the case as we head into picks and bans here for game number 2. This team has been mentally tough throughout this season, and we're going to see that here on display, I believe.
Yeah, remnants of their PK days from Zapman's veteran leadership. That man has impenetrable mental. It's absolutely ridiculous how much punishment he can take on the battleground and then pop back up and say, all right, you can't do it again. You can't do it for 70 actual human minutes. And very often people can't do it for that long. That seems to be the strategy for the Solar Scarabs. They make every team they play against absolutely earn every single win.
Well, this time it's the Solar Scarabs in that first pick position. Swap from last time around, I do believe. And they lead off with the Athena ban. Why?
Well, I could just rattle off what makes Athena good.
Sure.
She's got pretty strong early game. Her
Okay.
laning phase is deceptively strong. If you level that first ability first, it means that you really can just find a ton of damage as well as a slow to set up for your squad. That global presence is still incredibly strong as well.
Sure.
But the argument I think you're trying to lean towards is it's an argument of scale. What's better than Athena? Well, there's probably
A
a
lot of
fair
stuff.
bit of stuff in SMITE right now. It's interesting. Maybe these guys have just been scrimming each other. Athena's been popping off in the scrims recently. That's all I can guess.
Maybe. I mean, Athena is good.
She's
I don't
real
know,
good.
I don't know that she needs to be banned this high up, but the Scarabs certainly scared of what the Titans would do with the goddess in their hands, so they keep it out of the hands of Aurora and or Benji and or Scary on the other side, as Robin once again banned by the Solar Scarabs. So now you're in a position where Gilgamesh could be open. The Titans did ban RYZEN in their first pick position last time around. They didn't have to worry about banning Tiamat since they were first pick on their own. They leave open RYZEN. They ban the Gilgamesh, as expected in my mind, for what we've seen from that Gilgamesh. And now the Scarabs kind of have an easy first pick if they want it. They know that the Titans have a lot of respect for Baronix RYZEN, and they could go for it first overall.
Could go towards the RYZEN. King Arthur still available as well, but instead it's going to be the Soul Lock-in. And I think that's not too far below RYZEN in that priority list. She still has great survivability. It opens you up to that double hunter-esque composition in that you can just pick up a Fafnir and whatever physical hunter you want, and then all of a sudden every single objective on the map is wet paper to you. So I like what this Soul brings insofar as threat inside of your composition, but maybe some better options. The Titans, though, that's an interesting first selection. RYZEN and King Arthur still out there.
Yep. RYZEN and King Arthur still available. They decided to go neither way. They go Fenrir Loki instead. Definitely loses that flex pick potential for the Fenrir. We've seen Scary D play it very well. Now we know that it's almost certainly going to be Scary on the Loki, and that leaves basically just Aurora. I guess Fenrir can play solo, but most of the time you'd expect it to go to support. So now it's Aurora with Fenrir, and he's going to be going up against a Horus on the other side, a pick that we don't see very much of. But Horus Danza is a really good kill lane. Like, that is a lot of kill pressure.
It's just really good chain CC. Horus moves up with a fracture, knocks him up, lands inside of a taunt, and both of those also are really good tools to deal with Fenrir Brutalize. If that's going to be your main source of damage inside of support, he's almost never going to be able to channel it. I'm thinking as long as Horus is keeping up in rotations, might have to shift up the ability level order. This Fenrir might max out the Unchained first.
Certainly could be the case. Or the Seething Howl, very popular to max as well, just to get that extra physical power. As Hell, once again, for Paul, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I suppose. And the Solar Scarabs sold Danza. That is a good amount of burst, and Danza can close the gap onto the Hell a lot better than the Jingwei could. But you still feel like Paul was under so little pressure in that game for everyone not named Solo or Troll that he doesn't have to worry too much about what he's seeing on the map so far.
No, this is not enough dive. I was thinking if we were going to see adaptation from the Solar Scarabs, if we saw Hell again, it'd be that Amana matched up with something that can match that dive, be it a jungler like Ratatasker or Thor who could just close gap, or another warrior or something along those lines that could just stick inside the backline. But so far, I do not quite see that adaptation for the Solar Scarabs. So with 2 picks still available to them, they can absolutely shift up the pace here. One thing I do want to see, though, earlier Ankh. I want to see a first slotted Ankh up against this Hell. It's so much better than just about anything else you can pick up against her.
You kind of need Blink on Horus, though, don't you? I mean,
you're right.
You kind of need it in order to engage a lot of the time. Maybe that's going to be the pickup for him. As Hercules, once again, if it ain't broke, Titans aren't fixing it.
Now you really want the Ankh earlier on, right? That's a ton of healing.
That is true. Plenty of healing, once again, for the Titans, but no Umoja this time around at the very least. Scarabs have a little bit of healing already, so you got that going for you with the Horus. Guan Yu now being hovered, and the Scarabs going to lock in some sustain of their own.
Yeah, Horus and Guan together. Danza Burrow heals himself, and Soul offers herself a little bit of regeneration as well. So that might be enough threat of sustain to force the Titans to look towards an Ankh, or at least a Toxic Blade, Brawler's Beatstick, something along those lines to match up. But this Susano pick, I really do like. Hell is very susceptible to ganks in the early game. Got to be very aware of Susano's positioning if you want to deal with his second ability, that pull-in. This could be one way to make sure Paul doesn't hit the ground running like he did in Game 1.
Yeah, plenty of damage in a god that can build Brawler's Beatstick pretty well, but squishy. And Hell, when you're DPS racing a Hell, it can be pretty difficult, especially when you're in melee range, and that's exactly where Susano has to be. but you got plenty of mobility here for the Scarabs. CC maybe a little light, I would say, but sustain, damage, they scale pretty well. Their objective damage is still pretty good. I think the Scarabs should be pretty happy with what they came up with.
They've got a good draft here. Both squads running quadruple physical, only one soul magical on each side. Soul, not a pun intended, and
Very
Hell
nice.
on the other end there. I like these drafts a lot. Surprised to see Chiron somehow making it all the way through to 10th pick. That god has been absolutely dominant here in Season 8. Think that maybe it could have been a slight oversight to let that one through so far, but I like it. It's just about adaptation on play on field now. It's whether or not the Solar Scarabs can close gap onto this Hell. Last time around it was just SOT, but now with Danza Burrow's rocket, with Horus's ability to relocate the entire team, should have a little bit of help back there.
Yeah, maybe he just drop ships the whole team right on top of the
Get
Hell.
her!
Yeah, everyone attack, and particularly that guy. And you've got the dive to do it now with the Guan Yu in addition to that. But on the other side, the peel seems to be not too bad from the Titans. I mean, you've got the cleanse, you've got double cleanse now between Hell and Chiron, so that CC pretty telegraphed coming from Horus, telegraphed coming from Guan Yu, telegraphed coming from Danza Burrow. Between the two cleanses, I don't know how often that CC is really going to land.
You gotta hope that the damage is gonna land then, right?
Yeah.
If the CC isn't gonna be good enough, the ultimate CC is the grayscale screen, and damage galore is what the Solar Scarabs have. Soul's Poke from a range, as well as their ultimate for burst, and as you already highlighted, their objective burn is incredibly strong as well. Solar Scarabs utilize that incredibly well in Game 1, able to steal away that Fire Giant. And by steal away, I mean right under their noses, not legitimately stealing it. But maybe that's the strategy to do it here again.
Maybe. I mean, they don't have the Fafnir this time around, which was a big deal, but Horus certainly sets you up for a lot of those types of tricky plays with that ultimate. The Titans, a little bit more front to back, I would say, with their team fight. You know, they're going to let their Hercules and their Fenrir set up for the back line, kill the dude that we CC, kill the next dude we CC, kill the next dude we CC. That's kind of the way that it looks like their competition is going to play out.
And they've got decent targets for it. Fenrir, with the Ragnarok ultimate, is going to be able to burn beads from one person consistently every time, which is going to limit what Layers is able to do on the Susanoo. He's going to have to likely go for beads in that first slot, which again is going to limit his ability to close gap onto this Hell. Solar Scarabs have their work cut out for him, but now that they're matching the sustain a little bit, likely liking their odds a little bit more so in these elongated fights.
Yeah, maybe some elongated fights on both ends. Can they have the room for the blinks and the beads and the sunders and the onks? Yeah, that they're going to need. Has to be seen. We'll see if maybe the back line needs to pick up some of those things. Let's throw it over to mythology expert Dave Olson for the cast.
Fun fact, I'm actually not the mythology expert here. It was Gormizer who told me all those fun facts. And then I told them to aggro via direct message. I slid into his DMs while he was on the desk just now. And Gore, it's Loki is the father of Hell and Fenrir and a whole bunch of others that you told me. But,
I
but
told
as
you
far
about
as this
Sleipnir,
game goes,
Odin's eight-legged horse.
yeah, that's we're getting into weird territory enough with Fenrir. But an eight-legged horse being
he was admittedly, so he's the father, if I'm correct about it, the father of Hell and Fenrir, but the mother of the horse.
Got it.
So,
well, hey, good for
Norse mythology's got some weird stuff in it, man.
It sure does. But look,
it's fun though.
And here's if we're re-rounding this out into game number 2 between the Tartarus Titans and the Scarabs here, I would like to see that this Loki do something this game.
Be
right?
the father of some plays.
Some plays, right? I mean, look, it's nothing against Layers. I think game number 1, it was just so difficult to find anything going there. I mean, there was such an offensive push from the Titans. It felt like in so many of those fights where Layers maybe just didn't have the opportunity. So now that Loki's back and available, Gore, I'm ready to see some good plays here. Layers, though, trying to turn things around. We'll get some damage in onto Scary D. Looking for a little bit more, though. Baronic misses just an auto or two on the back end. So Scary D down to half. Layers just a bit healthier, but you got to be careful, Baronic. You stepped a touch too far forward. But usually as these things go, no deaths just yet in the mid lane.
I'm curious now, again, playing against the Hell makes it a lot harder to be a Loki, right? Like, you're going to go in, you're going to deal some damage, you might burst them down. If you don't get the kill, though, they laugh at you as you walk away. But with the Hell, theoretically, you're not going to have as much to worry about. There is still Guan Yu, there's still Horus healing that is going to come through, and then the self-sustain that, like Soul will bring. It's not going to be an easy time for Scary D, but I'm excited to see what he can bring.
That was a jump from Aurora in onto Zapman, who has to use the beads here, but my goodness, the damage he has taken on the back end of that fight. Yeah, you think the lane in game 1 was aggressive against Zapman. Now you've got a Chiron and a Fenrir jumping in at you and your Adanza without beads now for the next 140 seconds.
I mean, the whole draft, like, save for Hell, really, on the side of the Titans, and to an extent, the way Paul plays Hell, I think, fits into this. They just want to fight. I mean, look at this. Scary D's already going in and gets the kill.
Oh, and he melts down layers with ease. Baronic is going to survive underneath his own tower here. But that's what Loki does, right? That's maybe what was missing just a bit from game number 1. Paul just a bit of damage away from grabbing this kill on a Baronic. We'll see what pathing Scary D chooses to take here. This would be aggressive should either of the two of them try to keep going here. You've got Baronic out of the fight. You've sent him back to base. That's enough for the Titans here. Scary D starting to make a bit of a journey out of this map. He'll get first blood over in mid lane. Now blue buff invade on right.
I can't think of anything to exemplify my point a little bit stronger. This team just, like, the Titans draft wants to fight. They want to fight early. They want to win the game fast.
They want to scrap.
A team that admittedly translates, I think, pretty well into the late game. I think Cyclone will look pretty good there. Same thing for Aurora. Scary, it remains more on playstyle shift as it does that necessarily like the god scaling. Hercules, we just saw, can do really well in the late game as well for Benji. So for the most part, the Titans are feeling comfortable and should be able to be a good driving factor in this game. But I like the group up, once again, from the Scarabs. I think the team fight, the way they can play together, is definitely going to lend itself to their style and things like that. But, I mean, you had mentioned it. I see Fenrir Chiron against the lane. I'm Zapman. I'm kind of wishing I was Jingwei again, not because of anything late game, just because I want to be able to escape so regularly. I mean, Danza should be able to stay alive here. In fact, with Horus, should be able to put some pressure back onto the Titans, but it is going to be a very difficult early game. For the Scarabs, I honestly just want to see them float.
Oh, and now it's inbound with maybe some help from Layers on the back end here, getting a kill onto Aurora. Layers is going to rotate into lane. He's blinked on through here. He'll teleport right back to the Fenrir, and now Layers has gotten a kill on the board here, and that's exactly what you need. You don't want this Danza, this Horus, to fall behind. That's when it feels a little bit difficult here. Could there be another solo kill? Yes, there is, but this time it's SOT on the Benji, grabbing it for the Solar Scarabs. A much better start here. Still down in gold a little bit, but the Solar Scarabs showing some life.
I mean, and a good swing in their favor. Up to Scary D. I mean, he should be able to get a kill.
Should be a kill, right? Yeah, should be a kill from Scary D. It's a dash out from SOT, and at this point, SOT just trying to turn around as much damage as he can. Maybe we'll do you one better, but the stun from Scary D has to use the ultimate. Grabs the kill nonetheless over onto SOT. Still one level lead, though, for the Guan Yu out of solo.
Still has to use the ult, like you said. That's maybe the biggest caveat. Hey, I'm going to die here. I'm going to make you waste as much as I possibly can. Get rid of the ult. Well, that's an ult that you can't use on Baronic. An ult you can't use on Layers or on Zapman. So I really like that he's able to do that. Because if you're going to die, get the most out of your life that you can, right? And so works out really well for SOT, ultimately because he gets the solo kill on top of that. But those are the proactive plays. I mean, Layers, name one play where he made something like that happen in game 1, and I genuinely can't off the top of my head. Right. Maybe early on there was one, but for the majority of that game, he really wasn't able to be a force out of the jungle that you'd like to see. And I think this is a good start for him. Granted, it's 2-0 over there for Scary D, but ultimately I think Loki is a little bit easier to handle and play around later on than a Susanoo, who has a much more AoE, a lot more control on the pace of the fight.
Uh-oh, Scary D doesn't have the ultimate, but he's got plenty of damage for Baronic. Paul will heal himself on up, but no matter. Layers is found. The 1v1 kill here. Aurora will jump back in. Full runes means stun, and that means kill from the Fenrir over onto Layers. It's going to be a drop ship on in, but nothing to be found here for inbound. So we've now seen this a lot. Layers being proactive, and then an answer back from the Titans. And so if you're being proactive, you tend to feel good about some of these traits.
Yeah, I think that at this pace, they're, I mean, slowly but surely falling behind. It's the stuff after the stuff, to quote everyone.
His ult. Oh, man, it's a jump in from Aurora.
Oh, no.
Ragnarok sends inbound to the side, and now it's Aurora with another kill on board, 2 now for the Fenrir. Inbound is going to try to find a kill here onto Aurora, but Cyclone Spin rotates on in, and looks like Layers was in there as well, so no longer do either team want to fight. Definitely risking death hanging around any further.
It's the what they're picking up after the fights right now, right? I mean, 3 to 4 kills, that's not a lot.
My goodness,
Layers able to just burn down Paul like it's nothing. It's good pickups, but it's still about a 1,500 gold difference, and it's where those buff invades earlier on came into this, right? A little bit more control on the map as a whole from the Titans has led to a small early lead, but the fact that the Scarabs aren't shying away from that really speaks, I think, more than any amount of gold at this point really does. I think a lot of it that's falling in favor of the Titans is made up for the fact that Layers is just absolutely running house right now. And I want to see him continue to do this, right? You're keeping pace with Scary
Still behind
D.
on net worth.
You both have 2 kills. You're just slightly behind in terms of levels, but that's about it that you really have to be stressed about. If you can kill off Paul and stop him from being this powerhouse healer all game, he's got 200% more deaths than he did last time. I don't know if that's how percentages work here. I guess it's 100%.
Don't ask me, Gore.
Infinitely more
Between the
deaths.
two
There
of
you
us,
go.
any of us are going to know about percentages. It's you. So don't look at me.
He's died more this game.
There we
There's
go.
the-
Yes,
the-
now you're speaking my language.
Absolutely true.
Now we're in my territory. He definitely has died more, Gore, and I'll give you a nod and a thumbs up on that one. Inbound finds some aggression here. On a Cyclone spin, Zapman trying to retreat. Will come out of stealth as Aurora rounds the corner here. There are beads for the Donza, but there's some cleave damage coming through, and Zapman will not be able to survive as Baronic melts down Scary D. Another 1-for-1 trade here, and this one is Aurora is able to survive.
And look, I feel bad for what I'm about to say, but
You said that in game 1, and I liked what you said, so let's hear what you had to say here.
once again, they could do that 7 more times to Zapman. Make him 0-8, right? But every single time that trade's going to be worthwhile because Scary D, especially at this point, is providing more to the Titans. We have seen some really not great KDA games from Zapman playing for the Scarabs where they've still won. And so it's one of those trades, if you put a lot of pressure onto one person right now, I mean, look at the kills. It's splattered all over the board. But if they do start to focus a little more on this duo lane, it's more beneficial for the Scarabs. And at the same time, I think Tanzaburo is still going to be able to get his damage done later on. He's not necessarily going to be bullied as heavily late game, I think, as he could be right now. So I don't know that Zap has much to worry about right here. I think actually the Scarabs are playing this not just incredibly well, but the way that they're going to scale right now, the fact that they're keeping pace, I had said it last time that if they didn't lose that early game lead, they would have had the play style and the plays made to win game number 1. Right now they're keeping even. We'll just have to see if they can keep up this pace to make sure that they're always on point.
Ideally, as a Danza, you're in a position where you can use that rocket to get in, and you're happy to be in their face instead of being nervous. And Zapman still within that realm of even at this point with Cyclone spin. 0-1-2 for him, 0-1-1 for Cyclone. We'll see if this fight has anything to say about it, though. Aurora with the Ragnarok might be able to chase down one. Instead, it's a double dash away. One is the rocket, one is the dash, and Zapman ends up getting pulled back through, and Scary D rotates on in. Perfect timing, 4-1-2 for Scary D on this Loki. And things were somewhat even between Layers and Scary D there for a minute. And Layers has actually made some very proactive plays on the Susano. Gore, it's a 2,000 gold differential, and 800 or so of it lies between the two junglers.
That's pretty good. That's a lot. Like, it doesn't seem like too much. I guess admittedly it's maybe what, a tier 1 item that you're going to be able to get. But hey, that's a tier 1 item.
That's
all
half
of a
of the
sudden
gold
that
difference,
your
right?
Loki is going to be able to pick up that Layers just won't be able to have. You can already see gone for that tier 2 star over there. So whatever he goes into, probably. I mean, I guess it could be a Transcendence. I'm thinking of the other one, Hydra's Lament. There's the item name that I was trying to think of. You build over into that, and you're feeling just fine as a Loki. 4-1-2. Again, being able to pick up the slash line. He's been banned most games this week, except for the last game and this game. Last game he didn't get to show off why he deserved to be banned as much. And so Scary D is putting on at least a little bit of a show. But it is that playstyle shift, similar to a Thanatos, right? Thanatos could go 4-1-2 in the first 10 minutes of the game. He's an absolute menace and devastating to you. But it might not translate into his late game play.
Scary D does get his back stopped here, and his beads will get used. But do you really want to stop this guy from going back? Scary D uses his ultimate to get back into the fight. Zapman is able to win the duel, but Aurora gets the kill on the Layers over on the other side. Inbound grabs a stun. He grabs a double. It's Cyclone Spin who's gone, but Aurora has the Ragnarok still right back into tower range. Goes the Horus, just a little bit more damage as the tower provides some of it as Aurora desperately clinging to life here. Zapman low as well, but Baronic with the good rotation in, and the Scarabs find a big 3-for-1.
Bravo from Baronic and Zap to play that, and even more importantly, inbound. I mean, juking through the minions the way he did, like, there are maybe 2 or 3 autos there that should have ended his life that don't connect because of the pathing he takes.
Well, that just
and
feels bad.
Good control, and this showcases, it's the duality of the Titans draft. And it might continue right here on DePaul, which is that you have a lot of healing. It's necessary because everybody's so squishy on this team. I mean, you've got 2 assassins, the Hunter and the Mage. Even if Hell builds tanky enough, she's still susceptible to a lot of that damage. Outside of Benji and Aurora late game as he gets items online, I think the Scarabs are going to be able to use that advantage, at least the damage numbers that they're going to be able to output, to absolutely decimate the Titans in some of these even fights.
Now we've already seen a better example of diving onto this Hell than we ever did in game number 1. Paul didn't die in game 1. He's died twice so far here this game. And I think this Guan Yu now shows where some of that strength is. I'm just going to cavalry charge on in and jump on top of the hell and whittle down that health bar as well as I can. So, a good look here so far for SOT, who stands at 2-1-0, just a level behind Benji. Maybe good in the gold department, but things could get worse here. No mana, and the health is melting, and Benji drops the boulder and gets a big helpful kill there with the assist of Scary D. 4-2-4 now. Let's see what Inbound chooses to do here. Goes back behind Aurora and Cyclone Spin, but it's going to be a double stun. Well played from Aurora. Now Layers brought right back into range of the Tier 1 tower. So much damage flies on in. The snipes from Cyclone Spin will be shy, but what a way to turn that one around.
I mean, yeah, you take an ult and you drop a couple in response, though. Admittedly, maybe a fair trade in that regard, but you get a couple of relics that come through. The bead's not there for Zapman. Maybe would have been the prime target to pick up. But with Layers, Inbound, Zap, all staying alive there, at least gives them the pressure they need to continue pushing forward over in the duo lane. I actually am really liking the way that the Scarabs are going to be able to scale this one. I mean, they've been bouncing back and forth between even in gold and behind in gold, so they do need to clean that up a little bit. That Pyromancer definitely doesn't help. But being able to get, let's say, a fight around a Fury, then transition into that gold Fury afterward, that'll equal that up, and I look again towards Zapman and Baronic. You get them in front of a tower, the tower's going to fall. It doesn't matter what the state of the game is, as they have a Fire Giant, even more so. And so if they fall behind in gold, they can at least make up for it in that regard.
Zapman forced to burn his ultimate here defensively as Aurora on this Fenrir has just felt insatiable in his quest for finding these engages, 3-2-2, and maybe that's the life of a Fenrir just a little bit. You jump in a lot, you set up for fights, but on the back end of it, your health bar gets whittled away a couple more times than you would hope for. Have to give credit on the other side, though, Gore, to another very aggressive support pick in Inbound. 2-0-4 so far on this Horus. Might be looking to engage again on a Cyclone Spin and Aurora. But Inbound has looked a lot better, I think, for the Solar Scarabs here this game. A big reason why Zapman still in a somewhat position of comfort here for the Scarabs.
And, I mean, not to smack him down, but last game, at this point, he had, what, 3-4 deaths? Like, I mean, he was trying to get aggressive the same way, but it just wasn't really working out for him. So this Horus pick has done wonders in terms of just the support play for the Scarabs. It's something I think maybe they should take note of, because the only other current Horus player that is doing it often is Wrong Yu, right?
Wrong Yu, yep.
Let's say it, the Leviathans look phenomenal when Wrong Yu locks it in. So I don't mind him being maybe a special pick for a couple of these teams. He's also gone for that sledge early on. He wants to be aggressive. That's kind of the point of both of these teams, is to just fight. They want to be in there.
Right.
I mean, we've seen it. It's 8-8. There's 16 kills in 14 minutes. That's something that, maybe if you're watching SCC, you expect to see in North America, but in the SBL, normally it's a little slower pace, depending on how it is. And I want to say that both of these, maybe less so for the Scarabs, the Titans. I was trying to think of a good analogy. And Darth Maul's lightsaber?
Oh yeah, it's the best.
It's really cool, double-sided. But if you gave that to someone who's never trained with a bow staff or something, as that man gets out here, yeah, good. Okay, he's out of there.
It was sneaky.
If they've never trained
close
with a bow staff, you're gonna chop off your arms or your leg, right? You're not gonna know what you do. And that's kind of what this is. The Titans have a draft that if you get aggressive with it, you can take on two of the best Jedi of their time. But if you mess
got
up,
chopped anyway,
you're gonna
right?
but poor Qui-Gon. But
not by his own doing, right? Darth Maul didn't chop himself. He got chopped.
That was Obi-Wan.
Yeah, the Gold Fury getting chopped away here by the Tartarus Titans.
No one got away from me.
That's all right. Hey, look. Again, it's you're talking to me about offensive linemen. I'm a Bengals fan. I'm going to sit here and listen with bright eyes. If you're talking about Star Wars, no chance I'm cutting you off, Gore. I mean, so that's just
maybe
that's
we
the one
start a Star Wars podcast right now.
Yeah, maybe we should. Yeah, right here, right now. We'll call it. I don't know what we'll call it. I'm not going to put myself on that much of a limb. Look, we've talked about how the pressure of the game has been going back and forth. How the Scarabs have found this aggression. The Titans have as well. But the happier team through 15, nearly 16 minutes has got to be the Titans. They're 4K in the lead. As that man is going to have to get away here from Aurora, who jumps in yet again onto the Danzaburo. Some fighting happening in the mid lane. Scary D left alone here. He'll teleport on over towards Baronic, and it would have been a miracle if he survived. And Layers will bring the kill total to 9 now for the Solar Scarabs. Still, though, pretty far behind in the gold department.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a sneaky 3K that goes up not even sneaky. Pyromancer Gold Fury does that for you, right? You're going to be able to find that control of the towers. They've been able to knock down all tier 1s. So that's going to get you up to 1,500 just in base on the map. And there's, again, a lot of potential. I think you give the Scarabs a Fire Giant play like they had last game, this amount of control, 3K down, they equal up that gold lead in no time.
Ooh, great stun there from Aurora. Layers will use his beads, but he gets pulled out of range of the Horus ultimate. Good thought there from inbound, but takes just a little bit too long to get his jungler out to safety. Benji now on the chase as Paul rotates on over from mid lane here as well. It's a 4 versus 1 on the chase. A couple members of the Solar Scarabs backpedaling in as well, but a great pick over on the layers. A lot of that skirmish ability off the map.
Continuing the chase, though.
Yeah, how far do they
has
want to go
enough
here?
displacement. They might be able to find something. With that knockup missing, he's not taking any damage. They want to get aggressive.
Yeah, Benji just walks under the tower, gets knocked up, and is not concerned about things here. So it's tier 2 tower getting looked at. Minion wave still a little bit further behind, but Benji didn't take any damage last time. Why would you be concerned about it here? So we'll get that health bar drained down just a little bit. Layer's still 5 seconds away, and Scaredy is not in this fight. So it's a 4 versus 4. A Cyclone Spin stunned through by SOT, but the cavalry charges down. That had been reserved for Paul in the past and might have needed to use it on the Hell this time around as inbound eats a snipe from Cyclone Spin. And back to base he goes as SOT will retreat as well.
And Scary D, not only did he just invade the speed buff, has the enhanced speed buff, but now look at all the low health bars. I mean, this is a perfect place for a Loki to try and rotate in. But no, they're pinging. They want him to split push.
They want him to keep going towards that mid lane. So it's the tier 2 in mid, tier 2 in left being looked at and damaged and likely taken down now by the Tartarus Titans. As soon as Layers goes up, inbound dies off. Tier 1, or tier 2 rather, in mid doesn't need that much damage, but enough pressure, slow build-up of pressure here on the left grants the Tartarus Titans another big chunk of gold closing in on 5K.
It gives them the opportunity at this point. Inbound just now respawning. Probably not enough time, not enough pressure to just outright take the Fire Giant without a fight, but enough that you can start looking towards that Fire Giant pit 18 minutes in and really dictate whether or not the Scarabs are going to be able to jump in and fight you on equal level. But I see SOT, I see Layers, like, help Baronic when his ult comes up, which at this point should be able to charge before a Fire Giant actually goes down. There's a lot of steal potential, or at least turnaround in the fight potential for the Scarabs. So I like this. I mean, this has been absolutely back and forth considering, I mean, the state of the map, right? Like, the state of the map means the Titans are winning. The state of the gold, the Titans are winning just through the pure values that we assigned to everything. But the Scarabs are fighting them just as if they're equal, if not just as if they were ahead in this engagement.
Well, it's the Scarabs that were driving a lot of the pressure in the early game, but the Titans did so well on answering back with at least a kill of their own that kind of mitigated the, we get a kill here, and we're going to go do something on the map with it. I mean, it was largely answered back by the Titans time and time again, where if the Titans were the ones finding the kills, the Scarabs felt like they were a bit on the back foot. That said, Baronic has put himself in a pretty good spot here, got some penetration online, Spear the Magus, Charon's coin as well. The Soul has shown a little bit of damage, Gore, but again, if left unchecked, that's where you can see an insta-kill on Paul, an insta-kill on a Cyclone Spin in the right moment.
And that first one, at least, is the one that really matters the most to me. Insta-kill onto Paul. Paul died twice early on real easily. Zapman actually avoiding death as of right now. Let's see if inbound can do so.
Oh, yet again, the rocket gets used defensively and then aggressively. Cyclone, or Scary D rather, gets taken down by Baronic here, the Soul. You call her name, she shows up in these fights, but Zapman low underneath the tier 2. Layers half healthy in as well. SOT could re-engage and said it's inbound who wants to do it himself. We'll see if he closes the gap in behind the Titans, but they are plenty far enough away. So it's the one pick and done. Scary D off the map now for 30 seconds.
I might even be willing to put pressure on the Fire Giant. I don't know, that's a risky call for either side. I think the Scarabs might be in a position where they could, again, pressure it, maybe not take it as of right now. Without the Coerce to really buff them, even with Soul Danza, might take a little too long for them. I like this call. Primal Fury going their way would be a pretty big advantage, say, akin to something like coercing 2 of your carries.
Oh.
They're going to go for a fight.
Watch out, Titan. Cyclone Spin. Pulled back into range. Oh, it's a massive stun from Aurora on the engage of this fight, and he has deleted Layers off the face of the map.
Though.
Cyclone Spin getting chased down by Zapman, and the Danzaburo will meet its target. Aurora continuing his warpath here. Grabs, I think, the wrong person. Wasn't looking for Zap, was looking for Baronic instead. Paul and Benji still in this fight. It's full HP onto the Hell. Baronic whittled away by Aurora, who has done some serious work in this fight.
And just can't get away with it. The healing from SOT is too much.
Oh, and Paul grabs another onto inbound on the back end of things. The Scarabs have stayed alive for so long, but Baronic will end up going down. It's SOT. The last line of defense is Zapman still in range. The rocket grabs nothing. Benji pushes back SOT. The deicide. It'll take a while to come through, but it might get there by the end of the day. The cavalry charge will secure his safety. And the Tartarus Titans get 4.
I'm wondering if he's truly... Yeah, no, Paul has no mana. Benji and Scary D didn't pursue as well, so yeah, he's out of there, but... I mean, that's one of those moments, like, extended engagement, that starts with Scary D dying and ultimately ends up being a almost full wipe there on the side of the Scarabs. Scary D respawning and making a pretty big impact. He was the two I wanted to highlight on this side. Is Scary D, what could this Loki do? Because he was like 4-1, now he's 5-4. He didn't really have a good mid game there, but transitioning into this 21 minutes, at least in that fight, was able to have a good impact. But it's going to be Paul. He's 0-2 early on in the game. They're getting to this hell, shutting her down. Then there was one kill we watched where they didn't, or I guess not even a kill, one engagement we watched where Paul doesn't die there. And they haven't been able to get to him since. And if that hell stays alive throughout all of these, that's where I think a lot of this turnaround for the Titans exists. You can engage really well as the Scarabs like they just did, but whether it's phenomenal plays from AURORA, which there have to be highlighted, there's so many good ones in all of that, but the healing, yeah, it's enough for the Scarabs. Hell is causing so much trouble for them. The cleanse, the healing that comes through from everything that is in Paul's kit is definitely giving them a just small advantage in every single fight. And that's been enough to help turn things around. I think if you can kill off Paul, you win this fight and potentially the game pretty easily. That's just a very, very tall order.
And we mentioned cavalry charge is one of the big pieces of utility that might help in finding Paul. Got used defensively at the end of the fight there by SOT. You don't necessarily love that. If you're the Solar Scarabs, I think AURORA needs to have massive shout-outs after that fight. I mean, the Solar Scarabs were the one putting pressure in, then AURORA jumps in. I think it's 4, maybe even all 5 of the Solar Scarabs that get stunned up by the leap there from the Fenrir and then grabs a kill onto the end of it. Ragnarok kind of locks down a target. AURORA has really shown up. I mean, 4, 3, and 5, great slash line for support.
And it's one of those plays that it's not just the stun. He forced Zap out of position to chase Cyclone.
Oh, it's a leap on in, and it's Zapman who gets jumped on. Yet again, Ragnarok waiting, Ragnarok leaving, but instead it's Inbound, who on the back end gets gobbled up, I suppose, says AURORA. Now Zapman gets knocked on back into range. Benji drops the Excavate. The Tartarus Titans feeling good as Scary D rounds the backside. Zapman has to use the Aegis. That might mean the Donza survives for a little bit longer. SOT, cavalry charge this time, could be a big stun on the back end, finds no one, only finds death on the other end.
Now they could continue getting aggressive. I mean, we haven't seen a single Fire Giant so far this game. You've got the front lines gone. This seems like the time to be able to get aggressive. But the Titans, they're going to go for Phoenix. And honestly, they've got 18 seconds before Inbound's back. It should at least be the bird. They might be able to find a kill depending on where the Scarab's position.
Where their character models went towards the end of that Phoenix, I think, told a pretty big story here. Inbound 5 seconds away. SOT 30 seconds away. Mid lane Phoenix still standing. There's a tier 2 in mid as well. And so the Tartarus Titans, they want blood. They want to end the game now. Layers pulls Scary D back into danger underneath the mid lane Phoenix. Layers gets pulled on back in by Benji, and who else but AURORA finds the killing blow.
I think you disengage now, right?
Yeah, you gotta leave.
SOT's almost back. You got another kill. You don't quite have what you need to take down that Titan, but they're going to be able to get Inbound.
Yeah, you thought they were going to leave. Instead, Inbound gets jumped on, pulled back in, and now the Tartarus Titans, the tug of war goes on as both Layers and Inbound are dead for at least 35 seconds. 3 members of the Solar Scarabs left in this fight. Might make it too. Baronic gets evaporated. SOT tries to dash away, but AURORA's in. Benji hits another pull. It's a big disengage from Zapman on the back end, but the Tartarus Titans don't care. They'll send all 5 in onto the Titan as a rocket from Zapman closes the gap onto Scary D, who goes back beneath the middle lane Phoenix here, but it's lopsided. The Solar Scarabs are on the opposite side of their Titan, and it looks like the Tartarus Titans, they might grab the deicide. They'll grab game 2. They'll grab the set here in 25 minutes.
Look, I think everything is going, well, maybe not well for the Scarabs up to that point. The gold lead starts getting out of hand. The kills were mostly even for a majority of that, but that fight around the tier 2 on right here was just so well executed. I mean, we got to see it the fight previous for the Titans, but just that last engagement around that tier 2 was magical, I guess is the best way I would describe it. A great loop around from Scary D. That Loki comes in right when they need him and catches off the Scarabs as they're retreating, able to peel them away while the rest of the front line just kind of barrels forward. And Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I was expecting them to grab a Phoenix, run back to FG, play it safe. The fact that they continued an onslaught, I mean, just absolutely beat down anyone that stood in their way, showcases the Titans and what that draft was meant to do.
I think that's what the Scarabs expected too. The Titans were in there, they grabbed a Phoenix, and they kind of leave, and then Inbound wanders forward, gets killed off, and the dominoes just kept falling there. Look, this has been the issue with the Scarabs, where they have great fighting. They can skirmish in the early game, but they were still 4K behind when the kills were even.
I will give them a lot of credit, though. The fact that they were able to do that against the Titans have been a really good, like you said, like tied, I think just under the Bolts, but tied with like the Dragons for their win streak so far this year.
Yep.
This has been a team on the rise. The Scarabs, being able to put up that kind of performance against them gives me a lot of hope for the Scarabs in Phase 2.
Especially after a little bit of a break there as well, getting back into Phase 2 here. Great
new
showing
meta
from the
next
Titans.
week.
Yeah, new meta next week. Things getting crazy here in Phase 2 of Season 8 of the SPL. That's it for this day in action. Then we'll take a break in the desk. We'll round it out.
No eres Shakira, bebé, pero no me mienten a mí. Quiero esos besos. No sé qué fue, mamita, pero me expreso. Yo por ti lucharé hasta la muerte. Yeah, contigo tuve suerte. Yeah, tú que matas con tu actitud. Como tú no hay nadie más, o al menos no sé. Y si pues no son como ustedes, que baby tú que matas con tu actitud. Que el rol no me da para darte todo el tiempo que tú te mereces, bebé. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Estamos para estar solos, sino para disfrutar. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Que sea costumbre, pero no hay nada que me asombre. Que cuando yo escucho tu nombre, no me importa ser el ridículo por ti. No me importa desnudar todos mis miedos. No me importa buscarme la vida por algo que me te muero. Yo te tengo, pero es que yo no sé si esto va a ser eterno, solo hasta las 10. Si eres protagonista de mi vida, bebé, no solo una novela que pasa ni te ve. No sé, tú que matas con tu actitud. Como tú no hay nadie más, o al menos no sé. Y si pues no son como ustedes, que baby tú que matas con tu actitud. Es que el rol no me da para darte todo el tiempo que tú te mereces, bebé. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Estamos para estar solos, sino para disfrutar. Me gusta como somos, mami, así en plural. Que sea costumbre, pero no hay nada que me asombre. Que cuando yo escucho tu nombre,
I don't wanna wait. I don't wanna wait.
Welcome back, everybody. Shop.smiteproleague.com, the place to go if you want to be looking as good as the Tartarus Titans were during their Game 2 victory, or Game 1 victory over the Solar Scarabs. They find the 2-0. Again, brand new merch for each team you're going to be able to find exclusively at shop.smiteproleague.com. You'll be looking good in those Tartarus Titan shorts that they have going for themselves. Overall, really cool to see these teams get their own sort of unique lines coming in with the inside apparel. So again, shop.smiteproleague.com is the place to go. Mr. 3.6 and Mr. 2.3 joining you here for the post game.
Okay.
As the Tartarus Titans do find the 2-0 victory, Miff, it got off to a much better start this time for the Scarabs. You good?
Yeah, I love it.
You looked a little pressed. You all right? Okay, just making sure. Because I want to talk about how good Layers was in the early parts of this game, because he was really doing a great job shutting down Paul on this hell, consistently getting in there. And for each kill that it started going their way, a solo kill for Solo or Troll, still no gold lead. Another kill for Layers, still no gold lead. And eventually, the Titans just were able to wrestle control of the game.
The first 10 minutes of the game, I'm surprised you were able to glean any information from it. It was a absolute clown fiesta, man. And we were talking 14 kills 10 minutes in, but you're absolutely right to highlight how impactful Layers was and how intricate his play was as well. Not easy to execute on a no beads, no CC immunity assassin up against a Fenrir support, but somehow, someway, was able to close his gap onto this hell consistently on the Susano. Tough, though, wasn't quite able to transition it because every time he did find a kill or set up for an assist, someone else on the team was dying elsewhere.
Yeah, Scary was oftentimes the one making that happen. He was able to clean up a lot of kills early on. Really good flank come the late game as well. How about the game that Aurora had, though? I mean, a fantastic performance on the typical type of Aurora god. Aggressive, jumping in, making plays happen. Tons of multi-man stuns. This stun was pretty crazy. Just overall really good play from the Fenrir.
Yeah, that was a one-frame Okizeme wake-up stun on Soul.
We all know what that means, too.
Hey, look, there are some FGC fans in there, and I'm going to speak directly to them. That was a clean play. That was incredibly tight timing to find the stun there. Unfortunate the ult doesn't hit the right target, but at the end of the day, still finds the kill and makes it out alive. Aurora making Fenrir look like a real threat, as is the rest of the league. That god is on the rise.
Definitely on the rise. Paul sits at 2-2-12, goes the signature breastplate in that third item slot, but he needed it in this game because SOT, Layers, inbound zap, they were trying to gun that man down throughout the entire game. Just weren't able to do so effectively enough in the later stages. Still gets off 14, nearly 15,000 healing on top of his 14,000 player damage.
I got to give some shouts to Baronic, though, man. 19,000 damage output in that match. Second highest inside the entire game, but the highest being a soul laner means that we can just go ahead and say that my man Baronic did the most.
Yeah, he did quite a bit of work. Though I don't know if I'm going to be willing to say that Benji didn't put in a ton of work.
Oh, he popped
in this game, man. This Hercules all of a sudden is looking like a signature pick for him. That is never going to be a good sign when now you've got to worry about, I'm sure Aurora is going to be able to pull the Hercules out again whenever he needs it.
Whenever he wants. There was one really sick Hercules play we got to see. We saw Layers use his third ability inside his own Titan, gets punched out before he teleports to it, and then he walks up with the Herc, says, oh, you're stunned against the wall, you're going to TP to this right when you come out of it, pulls him off the teleport, man. Just
so
clean
nasty
play.
So nasty. But Benji definitely popped in this game, as did the rest of the Tartarus Titans, Scary D included, and we've got him joining us for a post-game interview. Scary, I've been directed to ask you a couple of questions to lead off the interview. Aurora wants me to ask you why you paused after the Titan fell in that last game.
Did you see that on the cast? Did you guys?
No,
see the
I didn't
pause?
even notice. No.
Oh my god, man! It felt like I was being so toxic because we didn't even end the game right away, and then as the game's ending, I go to tab out and I hit F10 on accident, and everyone's like, "Scary, you paused the game. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Bro, I didn't know. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. That's all it was."
Speaking of accidents, I've got a bone to pick with you, Scary. We had to stall on the desk again because someone picked a banned skin. Do you know who that could have been?
Yeah, probably Cherio. He usually does that.
Scary, can we just put default skins only on for you, my guy?
That's exactly what I said after it happened again today. I said, all right, I'm only playing default skins from now on. This can't happen again. No longer.
Default skins only for Scary going forward. But hey, listen, man, you're going to be able to make anything look good. You're starting to really hit your stride in the jungle, it feels like. Phase 1 playoffs, I know it didn't go the way you guys wanted, but to come out to start Phase 2 after that strong Phase 1 playoff performance, how good are you guys feeling right now?
Yeah, like I said, we're just looking to consistently continue improving, which is what we're doing. our goals are long term. We're looking to improve as a team overall for the end of the year, and I think we're at a really good pace right now. If we just keep this up, keep working on our current issues, you could just like I could just tell playing with the team, we're more connected now. Like everyone's on the same page and stuff. When we're making calls, everyone's responding more like quickly. It's just everything flows a lot better. It's much nicer now.
Hey man, it's been fun to watch. Excited to see how you guys continue to grow. But I'm serious about that. Normal skins only. I'm not stalling for you anymore, man.
Yeah, I respect that. I understand.
Always love talking to you, Roddy. Take it easy, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time.
You too, man. Appreciate it. See you later.
Jungler for the Tartarus Titans, Scary D. Man, once he locks in not getting the wrong skins, like, it's over. It's curtains for the rest of the league, man. It's curtains.
It'll never happen again, right? He's going defaults. It's only, what, 5 times so far this
Something
split,
like that,
or
yep.
this season, rather? There won't be a 6th. Scary D's told us as such.
He's locked in, baby. Let's take a look at the schedule for tomorrow as we wrap up week number 1 of Phase 2. It's the Tartarus Titans, default skins only for Scary D, and the set up against the Camelot Kings, and then the Jade Dragons up against the Solar Scarabs. The Scarabs get 2-0'd here today, and they don't get it a lot easier with the Phase 1 playoff champions, the Jade Dragons, coming in next week or tomorrow. But there's a team that has showed the capability to bounce back time and time again throughout this year. They might give the Jade Dragons a run for their money.
Unflappable mentals from Zatman's squad there. But I'm really excited about that Tartarus Titans versus Camelot Kings matchup. I had that slated as my favorite match for the week full stop. I think there's going to be a lot of haymakers thrown in that one.
Can't wait, man. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Thanks so much for everyone for watching for today. We had a great time here on the desk as always. We'll catch you again tomorrow starting again at 1 p.m. for the Titans up against the Camelot Kings to kick us off. From all the casters, everyone from production, you can peach it on tonight.
Peach it.
No, I said it.
Yeah, but I said it
No,
after.
you don't get to say it again, bro.
Peach it.
I'm the one who says it.
Peach.
Peach.